Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another day in, well, the Chinese version of the apocalypse, anyway. Just looking out, I see, well, pretty much everybody's carrying on as they have been. People aren't wearing masks. They're not using social distancing. But maybe it's okay. I've heard some good, positive news. We'll say a little bit positive news coming out of the United States and elsewhere. So it seems, excuse me, put something extra in my coffee today. Some creamer stuff. But anyway, as I was saying, good news coming out of the United States. It sounds like the infection rates have plateaued. I don't know how long that's going to go on, but it's starting to sound like those hundreds of thousands of deaths are not going to happen. And I mean, we're still going to see a lot of people dying from this, but not nearly what they were expecting. So that best case scenario is no longer the best case scenario. We don't know what the best case scenario is, but hopefully not hundreds of thousands of deaths. The treatments, it sounds like there's positive information there too. Some of the new treatments, they might be working. Good news all around. Good news for everybody all over the world. I'm also seeing that here, a lot of those statements that they made about maybe the U.S. military planted the virus in Wuhan and all that stuff. It sounds like the government is starting to back away from that, so that's also good news. I've been watching the Chinese news and I haven't seen anything about, hating foreigners, so maybe that'll back off. And they've started to talk more now about these asymptomatic cases. They keep bringing that up, There are cases being counted here in China, but they're all asymptomatic, which, whatever, it's still the virus. But good news is they've stopped talking as much about these imported cases. Good news for me and any other foreigners here. Now, it is my understanding that flights they have all these restrictions now, of course, about foreigners coming into the country. That's going to stay in place for probably 3 months. Well, at this point it's less than 3 months, but it was my understanding that's going to be in place for 3 months. Who knows, maybe things will calm down and I'll still be able to do business here. I still don't think that the economy is going to be so great here in China, so doing any sort of import business here is probably not going to work out so well. However, selling Chinese products elsewhere might work out. I might be able to get some things pretty cheap and do that. Who knows? If I do, maybe I can make some videos about it, show you guys what I do. Should be interesting. Well, actually, that might be kind of boring, but hey, if somebody's getting the idea that they want to do something like that, maybe I can show you how not to do it. Hopefully I wouldn't fail, but you get the idea. Yeah, maybe today there's some bright news. Of course, when you watch the news anytime, it's like a roller coaster. There's all these ups and downs. One day there's something good, like the infection rate is, kind of flattened out. The next thing you know, it's the end of the world. It just, day by day. That's why it's best sometimes just not to watch the news. Well, you still got to watch the news. You still have to know what's going on in the world, but at least stay away from Twitter. Don't get on Twitter. That'll make you go insane. And if you post the wrong thing, you might get in trouble by the government. They might show up and tell you to delete your post and all that stuff, and tell you that if you don't, or if you do things like that, you could get deported. So you don't want to do that, maybe. Just stay away from Twitter. It's dangerous. Alright, you can see it's a sunny day out there. I'm giving the GoPro another try. I've adjusted some settings. I tried to use it yesterday when I was doing the video with my wife, and yes, and she's going to be coming on again today in a little bit. Answer some of your questions and make a few more comments. Anyway, when I got the video, it was like a little square instead of the way it should have been. The aspect ratio was all wrong. But today I'm gonna get it to work. I hope I get back and this thing works. Otherwise, this won't be in the video at all. But if it is, then you know I figured out the mechanical wizardry. Yeah, oh, time to get on the elevator. Yeah, you gotta love these doors. Yeah, it reminds me of a time in Beijing. I was with some friends on the subway, and you know, I'm coming from the Washington, D.C. area. I'm used to that if you get in the way of the door when it's closing on the train, it opens back up immediately. In Beijing, apparently it doesn't do that. At least it didn't at the time, so as I was saying, he tried to jump onto the train after us just as the doors were closing, and well, they shut on him. And if you've been to a subway station out here, there's two doors. There's the train door, and there's the station gate thing. Anyway, the door shut, and he was stuck in it, and it just kept slowly shutting more and more, and he was kind of screaming, and then he was stuck between the train and the station door. We had to help him pull through. That was funny. I mean, it wasn't funny at the moment, but yeah, he was pretty scared. Yeah, we managed to get him on the train, so he didn't get killed. They've got people that supposedly watch. You know, they look down and tell the driver it's all clear before they go. So hopefully you wouldn't get killed by the train in China. That's what the gates are supposed to be there for, so people don't jump in front of the train or fall, I should say. In Beijing on line 1, they every week have a few people that jump in front of the train on the oldest parts. That's any city, you know, you're gonna have people that'll do something like that. It's unfortunate. Life isn't good for everybody, I guess. So I'm an idiot, and I just realized it. You guys probably realized before I did. I left without a mask. I must be insane. I understand the mask doesn't really help you to not catch the virus, but believe me, if I go out without that mask, I'm gonna get stopped and harassed because I'm a foreigner. They, you know, they've got that whole idea that the virus has been eradicated in China, and now it's a foreign thing, so I probably better go back and get it. I thought it felt a little too nice out here. You see, being stuck in quarantine has had that effect. Now, I'm not used to having to wear a mask all the time anymore. Because in the house, I didn't really have to worry about it, but well, now I definitely do, so before I can go anywhere, I better go back and get it. I want to say, before we have any conversation with my wife, she has sent me on a mission to the little supermarket to get some snacks, some chips of some kind. Oh no, she told me 3 things. Now I have to try to remember. Ah, yes, some chips, an ice cream, and some kind of a drink of my choosing. I better not forget. It's not ever good to come back when your wife has sent you on a mission to get something and then to find that you forgot something. You know, I've even been known to forget, like, the main thing. Go to the store, I've been told to get, you know, let's say garbage bags, just as an example. That's the main thing. And then she gives me a few other things to get. I'll get some vegetables of this kind and that. And I go through the store and I get the stuff, the vegetables and everything, and I come back and she's going through the bag and she's like, "Where's the garbage bags?" And I say, "Oh, that was the main thing, and I forgot it." Yeah, I've been known to do that. Yeah, I just got to remember the 3 items: ice cream, chips, and a drink of my choosing. Just got to remember those 3 things. Let's see if I can find some good chips that my wife will like. Quite a bit to choose from here. I think I'm going to pick this. I got these last time. They were pretty good. Barbecue flavor. For a drink. Let me see what we've got here. Qingdao. Probably not this can. It's damaged. Ah, oh, that one's damaged too. Ah, there's a good one. I like this stuff. It's actually pretty good. Well, I got it. All 3 items: chips, ice cream, and a drink. She'll probably not be happy with the drink I chose, but The drink was for me. And don't worry, it's not morning anymore. It's afternoon, so I'm not, and I'll probably drink this at night. I don't know. What else am I gonna do? Can't do any work right now. Might as well, right? Okay, as promised, here is my wife to answer some questions and talk about a few things. So I thought we'd get started with the question that I saw that is something that I've heard going around a long time about China. That has to do with ghost cities. Do they exist? Is it a real thing? What can you tell us about ghost cities?
Well, I'm sure they're there, they exist, but I have never actually seen one, so I can't really say much about that. But I have heard things like that, online and such. I know they exist because mostly, in northern part of China, that's where all the industrial stuff are. So a lot of people, they left the areas, and although the developers, they were building houses down that way, but a lot of people, for making better amount of money, so they left those places, or for other reasons. But so they don't stick around, although there are tons of houses down there, but nobody would buy them because there are too many disadvantages over advantages.
So maybe you can tell me, I have my own ideas as to why this is, but why do they build the houses if there's no demand for houses?
I suppose it helps to pump up the economy, but I think the government is really trying to help people to maintain certain population, I guess, certain amount of population in the area. Yeah. So they don't want people to pretty much be packed in places like Shanghai or Beijing and those other big places. But then in the northern part of China, there are a lot of disadvantages already. Like in many places, they're not as developed, and then a lot of people are out. There are into other cities, really big cities. So they don't want to stick in the area. The government may have been trying to help that.
Yeah, I'd actually heard something about that in Beijing before all this stuff happened with the virus. They were actually tearing down different neighborhoods where a lot of these migrant workers had gone. And the idea, as far as, my understanding of it was that way they would send those people back to the second tier cities where they're from, and it would help to grow the economy there. And then it would help to keep the economy in China, in generally speaking, growing in that way. By pushing them all back, then there's more people there, there's more business, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's how the government were trying to do, I guess.
Whether that would work or not, I don't know. But right now everything is on hold, obviously, with the virus. So yes, there are ghost cities. Now, most of when I made this channel originally, the idea was that I was going to talk about people wanting to come here for work or to live, and what you can expect. So last time we talked about white privilege. Now, somebody had mentioned something else. They brought up, is there a Black History Month in China? Or something to that sort of, no, there's not a Black History Month in China. In fact, I hate to say it, but if you're a black person coming to China, you might experience some problems. And I think I'll leave it to her to explain that situation. Maybe I can ask you a few questions about it. So, in the West, if I'm in the United States and I'm posting a job, can I discriminate? Obviously, I can't discriminate in what I'm looking for in the position, but what happens here in China?
Well, if you talk about black people specifically, obviously there, first I want to comment on, why there aren't any black ones or whatever in China, because throughout the history, Chinese people or Chinese government, they don't really have much interaction with black people in general. If any interactions with anyone outside of China, that would be like just priests and foreign government, but not Africans or anything. So we didn't have any slaves, therefore almost zero interactions with Africans or black people. So another thing is like in China with job related, obvious we put in a lot of descriptions, like age requirements and male, female, as well as appearance requirement. You would think that that's like for model shooting or like something require you to have a better appearance, but that's not the case. Just for all the jobs is that way. But you talk about discrimination. It's not only like apply for black people, foreigners, or what. It applies to everybody, all Chinese people, everyone in China, because when you say the job description, they do that to everybody.
Yeah, she's not joking or exaggerating. I've seen positions advertised for like an office position, and they'll specifically say they're looking for a woman of a particular height and shape, age, everything. It's just the craziest thing you'll ever see. And since most foreigners are coming here to work as English teachers, you'll find that there are a lot of those kinds of requirements. If you're looking through, even if they don't come out and say it, they'll be looking for someone within a certain age range. They'll want and unfortunately, yeah, they do put in, you could call it, well, it's discrimination. There's no way around it. You might run into trouble. Not all the time. I've known plenty of people that have found good jobs, but you might run into some issues in that area.
So another thing is, people mentioned about discriminations against black people here in China, or that's just like to most Chinese people, that's just normal, I guess. That's just how Chinese people think. Most of them, I can't speak for everybody, but they intend to think, once again, it's appearance related. As I mentioned before, Chinese people prefer like white skin, big eyes and such. White skin part, they would do the same thing if, let's say, you are like Chinese person with darker skin versus a Chinese person with whiter skin. The white skin person would probably get a bit better treatment. So this part, black people, unfortunately, they have black skin, dark skin. So therefore, appearance-wise, Chinese people would be straight, be discriminated toward, black people. But it's not like unusual or anything. They, once they pass the appearance part, they will treat you normal. It's just like the first, impression, and then along with the political things, if something happens, let's say someone, like recently, there were a bunch of articles about how this African person
wasn't it about biting a nurse or something like that?
Bite a nurse's face, try to skip the quarantine. How that black person, spread at some Chinese people. So whether or not, if the news was or the articles were trying to exaggerate the situation. But anyway, whenever those sort of things come out, then tons of Chinese people would react it. Then they would, try to like criticize more on black people, or try to do things to pretty much say, they deserve whatever they're getting or such.
Now, the situation over in Guangzhou is actually much worse than just. There was a news article about some African person or something biting a nurse. There were also some African people that they said ran away. Something happened. They ran away from like where they were living. So the whole city is looking for these two African people. Isn't that correct?
So yeah, in Guangzhou, and apparently it says two sick African black people like went away. I guess for whatever reason they went away, and then they published that online and in groups. So now everybody is looking for them. And then they were also saying just, try to stay away from black people whenever you encounter one.
Which is, for most of the world kind of silly when you think about it. But yeah, they're all terrified that they're going to get, the coronavirus now from African people. Even though, as far as I know, the coronavirus isn't, widely spread in Africa so much as it is in Europe and the United States, which I know people are afraid of, Westerners right now. But yeah, it's just kind of a strange situation. Guangzhou actually seems to be the center for most African immigrants here in China. If you want to call them immigrants, it's not really easy to immigrate to China, but you know what I mean. That seems to be where they all go.
So apparently, from one of the group chats I was in, they were talking about how a lot of Africans, as soon as they land in China, they destroy their passport and just trying to stay in China illegally. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I do think, obvious black people, in my opinion, is just like, any other kind of people from anywhere. They're just trying to make a living and, to have a better life. So they come to China, and then a lot of them do make a good living in China and making good amount of money, even though, they may have some like difficulties, but regardless, they have better opportunities.
And I don't want anybody to think that, if you're African or you're a black person and you come to China, you're going to have a really bad experience and people are going to be racist to you. That's not the case. People are going to be friendly. Chinese people in general are very friendly. Now, sometimes the nationalism starts to take off and they get a little carried away, but that has nothing to do with racism, really. I mean, I know there's some discrimination. Like I said, most people that come here, they're going to get a job working as an English teacher. And there will be some discrimination, but it doesn't work the same as what you're thinking. So in their mind, because they don't know necessarily, if they see a black person, they automatically assume they're not from an English-speaking nation. So if they're going to have someone as an English teacher and they see someone that's African, they say, well, no, you can't possibly be a native English speaker. You're from Africa. And someone tries to explain, well, no, actually, I'm from the United States or Canada. They have a difficult time believing that or selling that, I guess, to the parents. So as ridiculous as it sounds, that's the entire reason why that happens. But overall, you're probably going to have a good experience if you do come. It's not going to be some thing where like, oh no, you can't come into this place because, of where you're from or something like that. I don't think that's the case at all. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No. So if you are talking about discriminations, it applies to everybody in China. It's not limited to foreigners or anyone, any specific groups. It applies to all Chinese people as well, because that's just how it is, I guess, here in China. Obviously, I'm not sure how it was back then. I think even, throughout the history, things like that exist, just obvious, more being reported today.
Yeah, for sure.
So another thing is like, in one of the comments I saw, they mentioned about like people still, criticize white people for the things they have done in the history way back then. Those people are dead and such. but obvious, they're not, they don't just criticize white people. It's just obvious. Unfortunately, a lot of things have been done by white people. So it's not because they're white, because they have done those things. But it applies to Japanese people too. Obvious, like in China, when you think about history and shameful things, you would you will think about Japan, the things they have done. So Chinese people, a lot of times, we don't like Japanese.
Yeah, if you want to think about animosity toward a group of foreigners, believe me, Japanese, they take the brunt of it. If you just come to China to visit, flip through the channels sometime, you'll come across channel after channel of these weird war shows where there are these really awful Japanese people that just come in and start killing people, and they're just maniacal, and there'll be this band of freedom fighters that come through, and they're always killing the Japanese people. And I mean, having been to Japan, Japanese people aren't like that, but yeah, that animosity still exists, and you can find out a lot about that if you want to. Let's see, what's that movie called that they put together? It's sort of like a documentary. The Nanking thing. Is it the Rape of Nanking? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. I'll put it in the comments. But definitely check that out. You'll understand why that is. But believe me, that's the one group that definitely takes the brunt of the hatred here is the Japanese people.
But overall, in China, I guess you know what to expect. So it doesn't matter where you come from. When you're in China, obvious you probably want to do things the Chinese way, or just try to understand how people think here in China. If you're living here, if you visit, it doesn't really matter. But you would find that interesting, So you understand, I guess, people better. It's just a lot of times I notice there are a lot of, anger toward, foreigners and stuff when something happens. But I guess it also depends on how the news and the government report it or respond.
Yeah, it's the same in any country. If you go to the United States and you hear in the news, oh, well, the Chinese government accused the Americans of this or that, people feel, a lot of pride about their country, and then they rise up oh, that China, they're so bad. Same thing happens here. It's no different. Chinese people are proud of their country, and so when they hear something in the news about some other country said something about China, well, they get upset about it because they have a lot of pride in their country. They've done a lot. But just to end all of this, I just want to say, wherever you're from, whatever you look like, don't be afraid to come here at some point. When all this is over, when everything calms down, you'll probably have a really good experience. Just keep in mind that, things don't work the same here as they do in other places. And yeah, don't be afraid to come and give it a try. And hopefully when all this is over, we'll be able to show you more and more of the country so you can see what there is to come see and why you should.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we will, see you next time. And if you have any questions, just ask us in the comments and we will be happy to answer them.
Yes, please ask questions. She will answer them, I promise. It keeps her coming into the videos.
All right. See you guys next time.
See you next
Salut.
time. Salut.